Survivors describe a moment when fear burns itself out. Not because the threat is gone, because the nervous system can't stay on fire forever. The first weeks are panic, the next weeks are confusion, and then comes something colder, exhaustion. People stop asking, "What is this?" and start asking, "How do I get through tonight?" They describe lying in bed with their eyes open, listening to the quiet like it's waiting to strike. They describe dreading their own homes, their own thoughts, their own bodies. They describe learning the layout of their fear the way you learn the layout of a dark hallway, by walking it over and over. And then one night, the fear becomes pointless, not because they feel strong, because they feel emptied. That is the moment resistance begins, not with triumph, but with survival. Across survivor accounts, the first effective change is rarely spiritual fireworks. It's human. Someone stays with them. Someone sits in the room and doesn't laugh. Someone listens long enough that the story stops sounding impossible. Survivors describe how the atmosphere felt bolder when they were alone, and how it changed when another person was present. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but noticeably. Many describe the same pattern. Private terror thrives in isolation. Shared space weakens it. They talk about simple acts that became lifelines. A friend sleeping on the couch. A phone call that lasted through the worst hour of the night. A spouse refusing to leave them alone with the panic. A pastor who didn't sensationalize it, just stayed steady. The presence, whatever it was, seemed to lose leverage when the survivor stopped being alone with it. If you're watching this because something already feels off, you'll want to stay with this series. That sentence isn't marketing. It's what survivors wish someone had told them early, before isolation hardened into a cage. Survivors often describe an early phase where they tried to manage the situation politely. They ignored it, they reasoned with it, they mocked it, they tried to coexist, they tried to keep their life normal while carrying something abnormal. That never ends well. A turning point shows up across accounts, the moment a survivor stopped negotiating. Not yelling, not performing, not bargaining, refusing. The internal sentence changes from "please stop" to "no," not fearfully, authoritatively. Many describe that "no" as the first time they felt a thin layer of interior space return, like reclaiming a corner of a room that had been crowded for too long. It didn't end the war, but it proved something crucial. This wasn't absolute. It exploited weakness. It pressed where it was permitted. It thrived where boundaries were blurred. When a survivor drew a line and held it, the pressure often shifted, because leverage had shifted. This is where testimony becomes uncomfortable for skeptics, and often for survivors themselves. Many people who later described victory did not begin as confident believers. Some were indifferent, some were wounded by religion. Some refused to be that person, but across accounts, when things became unbearable, they reached for the highest authority they could name, not as a debate, as a lifeline. And the response, across many testimonies, was consistent enough to be hard to ignore. Not instant bliss, not cinematic deliverance, but measurable change, pressure easing, intrusive thoughts weakening, sleep returning in fragments, the room feeling less crowded. Survivors often describe being shocked at their own words. They didn't suddenly become holy. They became desperate. And desperation strips performance down to its bones. This is where ancient language begins to feel less like theory and more like reality. The idea that the human being is a house, a vessel, a place, meant to be inhabited by something clean. This isn't religion as comfort, it's authority as protection. What many survivors discovered, sometimes to their surprise, is that invoking the name above every other name was not symbolic. It was friction. It forced resistance. It was fighting back. And if you want episode 6 and beyond, share this, subscribe, and stay close. Not because this is entertainment, because people don't fight what they don't recognize. Survivors who got free almost always mention what failed, because it nearly killed them. Some methods made it worse, obsessing over it, studying it like a hobby, binging content that amplified fear, trying to get answers by engaging the darkness directly. They describe a trap that looks like curiosity but behaves like permission. The more attention they gave it, the more present it felt. The more they analyzed it, the more it seemed to respond. This isn't a lecture. It's a repeated warning from people who learned the hard way. Attention can be a doorway. Fixation can become consent. Survivors talk about the moment they stopped feeding the thing with their focus. They stopped scanning rooms, stopped rehearsing dread, stopped narrating the presence to themselves all day long. They didn't pretend nothing happened. They stopped giving it the center of the stage. Survivors who regained stability often describe something unexpectedly practical. Order returned before peace did. They didn't wake up one morning healed. They rebuilt their lives like people rebuilding a house after a fire, slow, repetitive, unglamorous. Sleep routines, clean environments, reduced isolation, honest accountability. They stopped living in the shadows of their own secrecy. And as they rebuilt order, something changed. The presence lost traction, not because routines are magical, because chaos is leverage. Survivors describe the old pattern when exhaustion, addiction, secrecy, or despair rose, the pressure returned. When order, community, and daily discipline stabilized, the pressure weakened. It felt like reclaiming territory inch by inch. Survivors talk about setbacks too, because real wars have setbacks. A bad night would return. A wave of dread would spike. A sudden sense of being watched would reappear. And then they'd notice the difference. It no longer had total access. It had to push harder. It had to knock instead of walking in. That is what survivors mean when they say the fight became winnable. There is a moment survivors describe when the story stops being directed by dread. It doesn't always look triumphant. Sometimes it looks like waking up and realizing the mind is quiet. Sometimes it looks like reading something sacred without nausea. Sometimes it looks like speaking the name again without shame. Sometimes it looks like standing in sunlight and feeling present in the body again. Across accounts, survivors describe the same shift in language. It didn't disappear in a flash. It retreated. Pressure pulled back. Intrusions thinned. The room felt like a room again, and the survivor learned something that changes everything. This isn't a horror story where you scream until it ends. This is a war where you hold ground until it breaks. This is the chapter viewers want to keep at arm's length. I don't do rituals. I don't mess with that stuff. That's not my world. But survivor testimony doesn't let the viewer stay distant, because the doors aren't only opened by games. Survivors warn about other cracks: isolation, despair, obsessive fear, hidden sin, secret hatred, addictions you protect, shame you refuse to expose, not because these are bad habits, because they fracture the inner life, and fractures are entry points. This is where the old metaphors land with uncomfortable precision. A house left empty doesn't stay empty. A lamp left unlit doesn't repel darkness. A door left unguarded eventually gets tested. Survivors don't say this to frighten you. They say it because they wish someone had warned them. You don't have to invite evil like a guest. Sometimes it enters through what you keep hidden. Survivors who make it out rarely sound proud. They sound sober. They don't talk about victory like a trophy. They talk about escape like a rescue. They talk about rebuilding. They warn people not to treat this like entertainment, because the presence they encountered was opportunistic, patient, and obscene in its hunger for access. And they repeat the same message in different words. Don't play with doors you don't understand. And if you've already opened one, don't stay silent. Because the most dangerous lie is not, "This isn't real." The most dangerous lie is, "You're alone." The next phase doesn't look dramatic. It looks reasonable. It sounds peaceful. It feels normal. Episode 7 examines why most people don't realize they're influenced, not through possession, but through slow normalization.
Cheers!